Morning, Mavis.
Hey, morning, Laura. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. We really, really appreciate you at Surere Consulting. This will be really good for our followers. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
And
So,
thanks
yeah,
for having me.
yes, ma'am. You're welcome. So yes, this is it's actually very interesting times in the world right now. People are forced to work from home. We're forced to be closed in our homes, which I don't know if it has happened before where we are forced to actually work from our homes and be closed up. How are you finding it? How are you finding working from home?
It has its benefits and its challenges, obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
So, when you're at home, for me, what I find is that I get to save more time. I'm not traveling, so I am at home. But also, I then find that I am glued on the screen for longer hours than normal.
mm,
Whereas your travel would have given you an opportunity to take that break because you're moving from one place to the next, and it's actually
yeah,
good for you. So
yeah,
it has its challenges. Luckily, in terms of the home front, I always have a support structure. So I do have a niece that I live with, and I also have my two boys that are fairly independent. So
yeah,
that is probably also working very well for me because I am not having to run around like, with everything else in the household and then sit down and try to work. So for
yeah,
me, it's working all right, but it has, like I said, its pros and cons. And I hear people saying working from home, and I wanted to, there's something I read that gave me a good feel to say
yeah,
we're not working from home. We are at home trying to work
yeah,
because this is not a decision. We didn't make a decision that we were working from home. There are people who were working from home before this all started.
yeah,
All of us, some of us are not really working from home. We're at home trying to work.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the difference basically. But
yes, yeah.
funny enough, I actually find it very a different way of working. I find it's actually more good for us than bad
Mm.
because I feel like then we are forced to actually now spend time with our kids. You know, you're forced to have the balance of actually go have lunch with the kids when you actually have your lunchtime. Go have that coffee with your husband, or your wife in the morning and catch up and then go to work. I feel like that element has been missing when you actually go to the office every single day or when you're away every single day. Your family appreciates you more when you're home, and it's also good for your soul, and it's a very good balance
It
as
is.
well. Yeah.
But I really think it's a kind of personal. If you're finding that you're spending more time with your children, it's probably where your values are. It's what you've always wanted
Yeah.
to do. But there are people who are really not workaholics. They love what they do. So they find themselves, even though they're at home, they're
That's
glued on
the
the
stuff.
screens. They're not necessarily spending more time with their children. They are
Yeah.
still with their computers. And I think it's a personal,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
So it doesn't really make a difference. You're still gonna be on your screen whether you're at work or you're. Yeah, I get
That's the
you.
thing.
Actually, I get you.
Yeah,
It
because
is.
most of the leaders that I've engaged with, they're talking to me about working 16 hours. So if you work 16 hours, when did you play with your children?
Yeah, that's true. It's very
So,
interesting because my son doesn't allow me to do that. You hear him coming down the stairs, as much as I'll try to keep them upstairs. You
mm.
hear them coming, coming up, coming down, and stuff. So
And it's a
yeah,
value issue. So I
yeah,
think it kind of reveals your priorities, not your values, the things that are really important to you.
to you,
You could
yeah,
simply say, auntie or whoever else, or husband, take the baby back upstairs. I am working. But the
yeah,
fact that you feel that you have to spend time with it's
yeah,
because that's where your values are. That's where
yeah.
your priorities are.
No, no, definitely, because the balance is there, definitely. Like from now until about 9 o'clock is work, work, work. And my husband is literally dealing with them upstairs and trying to keep them upstairs for a while. And then, then I get into it. Then I then go, okay, time for them now. And then I'll focus later when they're napping or something. Yeah, like you're saying, it's
Like,
just about what your values are and stuff.
mm.
Yeah. All right. No, thank you so much for this. The next thing that I wanted to now to us to talk about is what you do, just for our viewers to understand why you're here, because they're probably wondering, okay, who is this and why are they talking about random things now? Yes, what do you do, Mavis, and what's your passion? What are you currently doing?
Okay, so I'm passionate about humans.
Yeah.
I am passionate about understanding human behavior, why we do what we do.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about aligning the understanding of human behavior to performance
Yeah.
in any area of your life, whether it is relationships, whether it is finances, whether it is in the corporate space, your career. What is the understanding? I mean, how does the understanding of who you are in terms of the biology, the psychology, how does that, impact your own performance? And is there a way of kind of improving that? So I'm really passionate about human dynamics, and I've done it mostly with organizations, right?
Yeah.
So I've done that mostly in organizations, to use the understanding of human dynamics to improve performance in organizations.
Okay. So basically today, what we're going to be talking about, just for the viewers, is that we're going to talk about emotional intelligence in alignment with personal finance, and also in alignment with how you deal with your life on a general, how it's such an important factor in your life and how you run your life, how you run your organization, etc. This is what we're going to be discussing today. This is why we have Mavis here today, to help us with that. So Mavis, if you're just going to explain for us in a simple term, what is emotional intelligence?
So emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and those of others.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I actually expected a very long...
Understand emotions, manage them, yours and others.
Yeah.
And in terms of managing them, use them strategically to achieve your own objectives and goals.
Yeah.
Because emotions can either get you on the way or they can get in the way.
Yeah. Are you born with it? Do you think one is born with EQ or it can be learned?
So I always say, when we're born with fundamentals. You're born with your emotional brain fully functional, but you're also born with emotional literacy. If you look at big kids know what they're feeling, but it's also a competence, because then even if you're born with fundamentals, you still need to practice. So now it depends on where you're born into, the formative years, how you are shaped, how you are skilled in terms of using emotions or understanding emotions, right?
Yeah.
So even though you may have a functional emotional brain, but if the competence is not developed, it becomes dysfunction. It's like a strength, it's like a muscle, right? You don't work out, your muscles don't get any better. In fact, they start to deteriorate. It's the same thing. So you're born with the basics. But if you don't develop it as a skill and a competence, it then begins to deteriorate. And depending on, the formative, obviously, mostly the formative years are very key.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is the way that you're being brought up that exercises the muscle of emotional intelligence that you're born with. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So basically, so your environment on how you grew up influences how you're going to view life and how you're going to apply your emotional intelligence in life.
Precisely.
Very interesting. But now, how I can imagine right now what's happening with a lot of people, even leaders and individuals, especially during this time, that I feel like probably that EQ, as much as one would have it, is highly challenged at this time. What do you think about that, and how do you think one can actually, apply it or maintain it if they already have it?
So it's a muscle. And as I said, and there's one thing that I've really been enjoying talking about lately is that your emotional immune system. So we've heard that with the pandemic, with COVID-19, if you had a pre-existing health condition, you're more prone to the ailment. For me, I look at it the same way. If you had a pre-existing emotional condition, and then this stress is loaded on you, yes, you're suffering.
Yeah.
But if you are able to manage your own emotions, I'm not saying it's not going to affect you, but the rate of the impact is not the same because of the immune system, the immunity. What is the emotional immunity you have built up to this stage? So people are able to quickly self-regulate. Yes, you'll be impacted. There'll be fears and anxieties, but you're quickly able to self-regulate so that you can begin to focus on what matters the most. Whereas people who are really paralyzed, complaining, or who are really drowning negatively in terms of, the emotions that they're experiencing because of this pandemic. So for me, it's we are going through the same season, but we're going through different emotions, and our ability to self-regulate, your ability to manage your own emotions will determine where you are. So it's different for different people. Yes, we're going through the same challenging situation, but your immunity, your emotional immunity determines whether you drown, you suffer a lot, or you're able to, yes, I will have anxiety, but self-regulate and begin to focus, or use that anxiety to actually take action where I need to take action, where I can take action, or use that anxiety to kind of manage myself and say what is within my control, and begin to establish pockets of control going forward, based on what I have within my control, versus worrying about what I have no control over.
So how can one build a strong emotional intelligence thing? Let's say you've never had it, or it is there and you're weak at it, like you're saying that you think you've been having it until a huge challenge comes and then you just fall apart, especially as a leader. I can imagine as for leaders how challenging it could be if you actually didn't have a good EQ or a good strong emotional being, like you're saying, emotional strength, for you to be able to handle your team, or even in the home to be able to manage things and manage yourself. How can one, what tools can one use to build that, so that they can actually now start moving forward from their negative state being, or the emotional breakdown, or whatever is happening right now?
Okay, so what is interesting is that, there's a quote that I've read recently that says, challenges don't build character, they reveal character.
Yeah.
So if you find that you're actually struggling now, it's an indication, it's a signal, it's feedback on where you are in terms of your own identity organization, the way you are organized internally. And so what can one do to build themselves? Okay, so I think that acknowledgement, first of all, is that this is where I am. I do need to build my emotional competence. And like I said, it's a process, it's not an event. So there are different tools and different ways of building this. Coaching is one way. And I think one of the things that people do is that when they need support the most, they drop it. Okay. So right now it is their season. If you're a leader, find a coach. Find someone who is skilled in helping you to understand yourself better and build your own personal identity in a very, in a way that is aligned and truly authentic to you. Someone who can help you to process emotions. I know one of our coaching programs that we have, we work with leaders to say, where did you learn to behave like that? Really, someone who can help you process the past and why you behave the way you behave. And you realize that we sometimes speak with leaders that they begin to realize that they've hold on to stories of their past and what happened to them in childhood, and that is what the fears of those experiences, they are still holding on to them, even though they are fairly successful now, and they need to just be authentic and real and be who they are. So it's a process. You can either get coaching, you can either read books, you can either go to conferences, seminars. There's lots of EQ on LinkedIn. So emotional literacy is key. Learn emotional literacy. So you have to find different ways, whether it is online training or, attending seminars, getting a coach behind your back so that you can process this emotional, reading books on emotional intelligence, very important. So there are different ways that one could begin to start the journey. And it's not an instant 6 months, it's a lifetime. So we're still all on the journey of developing emotional intelligence.
Okay. So one can actually learn it. This is actually very, very interesting that you can actually learn it. If you actually don't have it, you can actually learn it. Can psychologists assist in this as well? If you're seeing a psychologist, for instance, already for other things?
I say yes and no. So being an organizational psychologist, being a leadership psychologist, I say yes and no. Okay, I just it's almost like what can I say? Coaches. Not every coach is going to help you to process. There are lots of coaches there. So if you also don't know how to evaluate what will give you the benefit, but sometimes it's also trial and error. So if you have a situation that requires you to process, you have experienced an emotional meltdown, you need a psychologist or a therapist. Then the issue of you just have emotional challenges, you've not experienced emotional meltdown like depression, panic attacks, those really difficult emotional challenges. And then I would say maybe just go the coaching route, go the learning route, rather than seeing a psychologist, unless if you have to process, you know, an emotional meltdown, then you need a psychologist.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Now, I need us to speak to this now in relation to personal finance. Yeah. This is, when I was reading about it yesterday, it's called financial emotional intelligence. Is that what it is? When you actually have the emotional intelligence on your personal finances, or how does it affect, or how it affects your personal finances positively? That means you have the financial emotional intelligence. Is that it?
Yeah. So I mean, it's called different things. Some people call it what is it? What is it called? Personal? No. Psychology. The psychology of finance.
Yeah. Psychology of finance.
There's
Yeah.
different things. Yes, but it's that to deal with emotions and money.
Okay. All right. Now, I had a friend who, no, not a friend. There was actually a guest at a conference. Yeah. And as I'm coaching them and presenting about personal finances, what to do, she raises up her hand and says, "Okay, Lerato, I hear you, thank you. But now, how do you deal with the emotional part?" And then she says, "When I see money, I get nervous. I get so nervous. And one thing I've realized is because my mom was the same. Every time she holds money, she gets nervous. And then now I have now, like you're saying, how you're brought up really affects you even when you're older.
Yeah.
Now it's actually affecting her. She's older. She's got her husband and her kids. And she was saying, it affects me so much. I get so nervous. I don't even know what to do, and I noticed that every single time. How can one deal with that? So I'm going to push this to you. How can one deal with that? That's basically, like you're saying, the psychology of money affects the way that you manage your personal finances. How can one deal with the way that they react to money when the money comes in, or when they have to manage money?
So what does Warren Bennett say? If you can't manage your emotions, you can't manage your money, period.
Yeah.
Okay. Some different authors say 80% of money management is psychology.
Yeah.
It's your mindset. Okay. And then the action set is something else. But if your mindset is not right, then there will be a difficulty. And in this case, you're speaking about someone who's telling you about their personal story around finances. And that personal story is revealing a negative financial story based on the upbringing, the formative years. So you really have to go back. And I think our first encounter with money, all our first experiences with money, all of us, is when we are young. We can't even earn any money, but we begin to have strong emotions around money, depending on how money was introduced in your life.
Yeah.
And then by the time you start working, these emotions and emotional habits are already in place, and they run the show.
Yeah.
So you need to go back into childhood, into your life story, and say, where did I learn emotional nervousness around money, and why was that? And then begin to unravel, begin to heal that story by opening it up and talking about it, but also having, you know what it is with, that if you don't analyze your emotions, you can act on them as if they were fact. So you need to go back and analyze your emotions. Your mother's story is not your story. You need then to be conscious and very rational to say, what story do I need to create around my money? And begin to build the mindset and the competences that are required for you to create a new story. Because I think a lot of us really never build a mindset around money. We just think, okay, you go to school, you get a career, and then you start working and you start earning and you start spending. And then where did you learn the skill to actually manage your money? How did you build your own emotional mindset to begin to shape it around what matters the most to you? What are your values as a person? Okay. What is your self-image? Because your self-image will definitely affect how you handle money and how you use it. What is your personality? What are your personality traits? And how does that, kind of strengthen or kind of get in the way for you to manage your own money? So you need to go back and when you experience the nervousness, is it just because of the emotional experiences in the past, or is there a real need that needs to be actually met? So you need to understand who you are, align your mindset, formulate values that support the story that you're trying to create. And this is a conscious process. Because if you don't do it consciously, the unconscious will run the show.
Yeah, actually, the unconscious will run the show. And you're right, because when you actually, even when I actually go back a little, when you read books about emotional intelligence, or if you read book about coaching, they will tell you about your subconscious and your consciousness, that what will run the show. So those are the things that you'll actually learn how to do. So basically what you're saying is, now deal with those issues so that you can understand yourself and your values and who you are, apart from the way that you've been raised. Because sometimes the way that you've been raised will affect the way that you run your life. If the values were bad, how about now you start being conscious and say, but no, this is not good, and actually now build your values. And once you build your values, then it will affect everything else, including your personal finances, basically.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah. So I mean, this is very very eye opening. I'm hoping she's watching wherever she is so that she can also gain this. So basically, what you're saying is now, let's say one doesn't know how to use money well. I mean, this is what I get from a lot of my clients. That's why I don't know where to start. I mean, a lot of debt. This is my situation. What can I do? Then I'll come up with solutions, but I'll tell you the challenges that I'll get. The challenges that I'll get will be the commitment to the journey. You see, because what I always advise my clients is it's a journey. So you're gonna need to be committed to it. Then there's no commitment. And that's another thing, that how can I encourage my clients, or how can you encourage somebody out there, once they commit to something, stick to it? How do you stick to it? Because obviously now it is the emotional aspect that is affecting you to stick with whatever that you need to be doing. How can one encourage somebody to, because now for me, I would say, if you're not committed, call me when you're ready. That's how.
Okay, so the issue of commitment is you're talking about intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation comes from a place of self-awareness.
Yeah.
So when you lack a self-awareness, it's difficult to kind of maintain intrinsic motivation. So I guess what you probably need to start with the client is to start developing their own self-awareness before we even start talking about money. Let's talk about you, right? So the moment I have that you, and I am able to make you see some things that you are not currently seeing about yourself, some of the things we say, dream, right? I'll start with my client and I say, dream, write your dreams down. And people struggle, to dream. And I just say, because of their personal finance, where they find themselves they are drowning in debt, how can I even start to dream? So people start finding difficulties and putting limitations on themselves. And I always say to people, dreams are for free. I'm not saying go buy dreams. I'm just saying dream. What is important to you? So what you're doing is you are activating internal energy, because what it does, debt drains energy. Debt makes you emotionally drained to the fact that you no longer have enough energy to be persistent, to be determined, to have the commitment. Commitment requires energy. Discipline requires energy. But if you don't already have energy because you're already emotionally drained by your debt, it's difficult to keep a commitment. So you want to be able to activate that internal drive, that you get to a place where you are no longer the one trying to make them do, but they want to do it.
No, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because the one thing that I do when they come in is that the first thing we do, we focus on your goals. Like you're saying, I just say, go right to your goals. Tell me, because we can't even manage your personal finances when you don't know where you're going. So we need to know where you're going and where you want to go. And that's where it starts, where you realize somebody has no idea what they actually want for their lives. Then when somebody is in that situation and they can't dream, how can I help them? How does one help somebody in that situation? Or is it the same thing? They should find a psychologist or find a coach that can help them with that? Is that the same solution as well?
So again, it depends on where they are
emotionally
and emotionally. So you need to be able to ascertain why can't they dream. And sometimes it's also the techniques and the kind of questions you ask that will propel them to having that kind of inner drive. Some people are even afraid to enter inside. Like you've been hurt and disappointed so much, you don't even think you can look inside. So
absolutely.
sometimes you need to help them break the fear, break them the disappointment, and let them see the possibilities, that what's possible. And sometimes it takes sharing your own personal story. So I find when I tell people my personal story, people begin to believe, oh, really?
Actually,
did you go through that? Because when people look at you, they almost think like, things just happened. But when you share your story and the barriers you've had to break, and sometimes you just have to find different ways of making people open up so that they can begin to even have the possibilities and see the possibilities.
Absolutely. Because, sometimes I'll tell you this, one of the things that I will pick, obviously I'll definitely pick that there is something deeper. than personal finance. Yeah. And that is obviously not my specialty. Then I'll then recommend, I have a psychologist that I work with. I'll then recommend to the psychologist, can you kindly help this person? And, like you say, it really depends on the client. The client will then say, okay, I'll go see the psychologist, and then I'll book the psychologist, and then they don't show up, and et cetera, et cetera. Those are the things that it also depends on the client's approach, and also just a view on life and how they're feeling about themselves at that point. But the point where I'm discussing this is that I would like the viewers to actually understand that it will happen that you try to manage your personal finance. You come to Loretta for financial advisory, but you won't get it because there's something deeper that is causing this. And sometimes it's best you actually go, and if a financial advisor notices it and actually advises you to go see a psychologist or go see, please go, so that you'll be able to come with a fresh mind. Because I feel like sometimes there's this veil that happens when you're stressed. It's like there's a veil that just blocks everything from you seeing everything. So once you actually see a psychologist or see a specialist in that area that can help you deal with your emotions, then the veil just gets lifted, and then we can have a conversation, and then you will understand where you're going. But no, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this, Mavis. So now, on a general now, with your personal finances, on investments and everything else, emotional intelligence also affects that, doesn't it? If you want to make it, yeah.
So emotions drive behavior, and behavior drives performance.
Yeah.
Right? Emotions drive behavior. So the choices and the decisions you make on a day-to-day basis are driven by your emotions. Which means if you're going to make an investment, it is driven by your emotions.
Yeah.
How do you choose one investment from the other? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're a risk averse person, you're probably unlikely to get into, things that, for me, for example, I appreciate really people who talk about stocks and all that.
Yeah.
But I don't have the emotional container for the risk, to contain the high level risk that is in stocks. Right.
Yeah.
So I would rather go the safer route. Okay. So I would rather, invest in property, because then I know that the property is there, I can see it. Right?
that other risk, you're just like, no.
There's no up and down. You're not gonna get there and the property has been uprooted. It has been down. It really depends on your own emotional container. What are you able to hold? But also your competences, because remember, competence, if you become competent, your fears disappear. So what skill have you developed? Do you have the skills around, stocks? Do you understand them all? So if you have not built competence, don't do something you don't know. Because I think this is the greatest challenge, that people try and invest in someone will say there's Bitcoin, there's this and that, and you have no idea. And you are in a place where you are desperate for money. So you will think anything will work. And then you'll be disappointed because you have not done your own due diligence to try and understand what you're trying to get yourself into, but also to try and align that with your own personal values and your own emotional content. Very, very important.
Yeah,
right?
personal values.
When people talk about debt, I always say debt is a reflection of your self-worth. It is a reflection of your emotional debt. Okay? And if you try to use finances to pay off emotional debt, welcome to hell.
Yeah.
Welcome to hell, because there's no amount of money that can pay off insecurity.
Yeah.
You just have to process the insecurity.
Yeah.
You are going to make financial messes and mistakes because of the insecurity you have.
Yeah.
You're trying to validate yourself from finances, and sometimes the finances you don't even have.
That's true. Yes. Actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you need to really build yourself up and say, who am I? What matters to me as a person?
Yeah.
Where am I fractured? Where am I? Where do I have emotional debt? And begin to understand that and begin to work with it and begin to heal that one step at a time.
Yeah.
And realize that I'm not going to use money to heal myself. Yes, if I'm going to a therapist, or I'm going to a psychologist, or I'm going to a coach, yes, that, because I'm then rebuilding my own fractured insecurity versus trying to kind of, numb yourself with things around you, using personal finance to kind of sedate yourself without actually building yourself up from inside out.
Caring what other people say, basically. Because this is another thing that we have a challenge, particularly in our country. I know even South Africa, it's got the same issues where, a lot of debt. A lot of us have a lot of debt and put ourselves in debt because we're trying to impress somebody we don't even like or somebody that we don't even know. I have to drive a certain car because people will say this about me. People will look at me, they say, will take me seriously because I'm driving this car or I'm living there. Whether you can afford it or not is neither here nor there on the decisions that we're actually making. But thank you for raising that point because it's very important that we stress on it that you need to be emotionally intelligent. You need to understand yourself and stop making decisions about personal finance and actually thinking they'll validate the way that you feel, or they'll make you, people will like you because you're spending money in a certain way, or people are, that's the thing that I know it challenges a lot of people because they get embarrassed of things that they shouldn't even getting embarrassed of, like for, where you live, who cares, and those are the things that, like you're saying, find who you are in your emotional being, and once you understand yourself, then you can actually spend money with your values and align it to where you want to go. Even your investments, like you're saying, then you get to say, no, I'm not for stocks, I'm for property, and why you are for that. The understanding of the why I do that, and it comes to the emotional intelligence and understanding of self, basically. Yeah, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, let me give you another example. Like for instance, women particularly, they will have no, I need some retail therapy. There's that, where somebody would go to the shops just to buy something, and then they will feel better about themselves when they come back. Or there's another one that says, somebody would say, I would rather cry in my big mansion than cry in my small house. How can you, yeah.
So for me,
Yeah.
it's okay. How do you cope, and how are you managing your own emotions, right? So for me, if you have, I always say to women, it's okay to do retail therapy as long as it's on your budget.
Yeah.
If you're gonna run a credit card to do retail therapy, you need help. Because
or spending your last cent.
it's anxiety. Okay, no amount of shopping is going to take, yes, it will temporarily take it away, but it will show up again
tomorrow.
So until you learn how to manage your own anxiety, exactly. Until you learn how to manage your own anxiety so that it doesn't drive you to do things that are crazy around your finances, then it's very important. But also, it's almost about it's think about what you're doing now and the long-term consequences. Will you like yourself 2 years from now if you keep on doing yourself what you're doing? Who are you going to be? Financially, who are you going to be? Will you look back and regret the decisions and the things that you're making right now? Cool. Cry in the mansion if you can afford the mansion. But if you can't afford it and you're forcing yourself to afford the mansion so that you can protect your own emotions, you are creating fragility around yourself, because that all is going to crumble down. At some point, the emotions you're trying to hide will show up. So if you have used your own fears and insecurity to be able to afford, because emotions are neither good or bad, they are, you can use them as energy, whether positively charged or negatively charged. Some people use their insecurity to achieve. Some people use their fears to achieve. As long as it is sustainable, that's fine. So cry in your mansion as long as it is sustainable. But if it's not sustainable, then it will come and eat you back. What are the long-term consequences of the decisions you're making in the now? Based on the emotions that come and go. Because remember, emotions are temporary.
They are temporary. It's the same thing as buying an expensive car because of how you are feeling at that particular point, or you're feeling like, I'll rather cry when I'm in a Mercedes Benz or when I'm in another car, because and you're putting yourself under unnecessary debt when it's not necessary.
If you can afford it, it's your own way of soothing yourself, and you have the money, go for it.
It's okay. 100. All right. So basically, what's your view with money and happiness?
Okay, so a lot of people have tied their happiness around money. And what it is that, you can tie your happiness around anything. Some people have tied their happiness around their husbands. Others have tied their heads as their happiness around their work. So it's attachment. Anybody can attach themselves to anything.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have attached yourself to anything doesn't mean that it's sustainable or it's what it's supposed to be. It doesn't mean that you need money to be happy just because you've attached your happiness to money.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you need your husband to be happy just because you've attached your happiness to your husband. Okay. So I always say for me, happier people make more money.
Yeah. The other way around.
The other way around.
It's the other way around.
And happier people are more stable with their lives. It's happier people who have the courage to live within their means.
Yeah. Because they've
They're not trying to do anything. Yeah. And you will come into the house of a happy person and probably you would look down upon them and say, oh, this is where they live. But they're so happy in their home. You're the one who's actually having a problem.
With their own things.
They are so at home in their life. So for me, happiness is about being so at home in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Now,
being so at peace with your life.
Yeah,
it's not money. It's not.
Yeah. So basically, when you should be happy, then everything else will come. When you are happy with yourself, inside it's okay. Then everything else good. Basically, everything outside doesn't make you. It doesn't affect how you feel. You're okay. Then everything else comes. Yeah. So basically, yeah. There's this thing that your life reflects of how you feel about yourself, or your environment reflects of how you feel about yourself. Can you tie that together? Yeah, is that, you think that's it?
So here's the thing: our internal worlds determine how we act on our external world.
Yeah.
Because remember, we said emotions drive behavior. So the actions or inactions. Which means we create our own external environment based on our internal environment. And then there's that vicious cycle. Then your external environment impacts your internal. Then your internal impacts your external. So there's that continuity. So we have, it's almost like a human system where you have inputs and outputs. So there's that continuity between your inputs internally and how they impact the outputs externally, and how those outputs influence your own input internally. So there's that continuous feeding between yourself internally and external environment. We create the environment based on how we feel, and the environment creates the emotions. So you get into that vicious cycle. However, you can change the environment by changing how you feel. Because then when you change how you feel, you begin to impact your environment differently.
Yeah.
And when you impact your environment differently, your environment changes. And when your environment changes,
so actually, yes. And then linking that to now us going back to the way we've been raised, right? And then how it affects the way that you manage your life. It's important that we also pay attention to the way we're raising our kids. If the way that we've been raised impacts us so much in the way that we manage our lives, that means we really need to be conscious of the way that we raise our kids, and how they value themselves and their emotions, so that they can apply it on their personal finances as well.
Very, very true. We're shaping them. Formative years are very, very key. Very key. And the ability to teach them emotional competences at a younger age, very key.
So that's why it's important that if you are feeling a little bit insecure about yourself, deal with it, so that you can be able to teach your children to become better human beings even when they're grown up.
True.
Very, very, very important. Thank you so much for this conversation, and Mavis. And now can I just touch quickly on the way now this thing, lack of emotional intelligence obviously affects your personal finances. It will also affect you in the way that you're going to behave in the work environment. Now we're going to an organizational effect of it, how it trickles all the way down. How I always talk to particularly the wellness guys, or the human capital guys, the guys who are dealing with the humans in the organizations, on how literally personal finances affect everything, in a human being, including in the way that they will perform in an organization. And as a leader, you need to have that emotional intelligence to understand that this human being needs help in this area. Let us help them. Okay. Let's speak about that, and how we can actually advise our leaders on understanding your team and the kind of help that they will need, and please source them the help and effect, so that they can perform better, and stop asking for advances. And if you see somebody coming a couple of times asking for advances and coming up with different reasons, that means there's a problem. I mean, that we've seen people committing suicide because they have serious financial issues, but leaders are not paying attention to this. How can we advise leaders out there to be paying attention to this, and actually help employees to become better people for them, better people and better employees as well?
Okay, so we're realizing a shift from managing a person's career versus managing a whole person. So people are moving away from, we're just dealing with you as a person that works here, versus you being a person, being a total person. So if we're talking about a people management, we're really talking about you as a whole, which means we look at the various aspects of your life and see how they impact you and how they impact your performance, which is why we're suddenly realizing that organizations are being open more and more to talk about personal finance as one of their competencies, because they realize that if they don't do that, and people are not managing their money effectively, then they will have the stress, and the stress will spill off into the workplace, and it will affect performance, right? So we are realizing the importance of addressing the whole person rather than parts of the person. So in that, leaders need to understand, and I think for me, the biggest challenge with organization has been most organizations are really reactive in terms of their wellness approaches. Okay, wait until you break down so that we send you to a wellness whatever. We wait until you're in debt so that we start sending you for what is it, debt counseling, or we start getting you some help. Why not be proactive and say, as we engage you in our organization, we already have these tools that you can access so that you can begin to progress in every aspect of your life. Not just finances, not just relationships, not just your career, not spirituality. All of those things affect who we are, right? So you need to look at a total person and say, what are the tools that we can give? I know that top performing organizations in the what is it called in the US, top performing organizations, they are called something top performing, top 500 companies or something like that. They take all their employees through emotional intelligence. You go in, whether you're from the sweeper to the CEO, all of everybody. And once a year, it's a mandatory course. You go on other courses, technical courses, but emotional intelligence, everybody goes through it once a year. Okay, Google has got a special course. What is it called? They've got a special one that they've designed for themselves, and all their employees go through emotional intelligence. Why? It's a life skill. It helps you to manage all of who you are as a person versus bits and pieces. When you have the emotional intelligence, you can begin to manage your money intelligently. You can begin to develop relationships that are, that are strong and useful for you. Your spirituality, meaning of life, everything kind of, it's almost like I always say, emotions are the master key. When you understand your emotions, it's almost like every area of your life begins to fall into place. And you become the personal power. You begin to take authority and control over your life versus being a victim of events and circumstances. And that's where you want our people. That's where we want our people to be. You want them to have the personal authority. You want them to have the personal agency in their life, to have the autonomy to make choices and decisions versus being a victim. Things are just happening to you, and you are not taking control of what's going on in your own personal life.
Then it trickles down to everything else. Once you've got that right, everything else falls into place, including your work, including efficiency at work. Oh, absolutely. This is actually was very important conversation. Thank you so much, Mavis. I think we're gonna end our conversation here for now. For now, and then another time, then we'll discuss something else so that we get to really help our people. Get better with themselves. How best can we help them? Because one thing I do as well is that ask them to send me questions of what you guys need help with, so that we can help you besides personal finance, especially during this time. Because my aim is that we come out of this better than we were. Holistically, emotionally and financially, organization wise, work wise, everything. Let's give them all the support we can as far as possible. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mavis, for your time. I would like you to get back to your work now. I'm sorry for waking up too early, but I hope it was good for you as well.
It was.
Yeah.
It was good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
righty.
right. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.